In this video, I'm going to be going over the 3 biggest misconceptions that I see causing bad performance in both new and old accounts. The biggest thing that I've seen from accounts that are performing poorly now that used to be performing really well last year or even earlier this year is not being willing to adjust with the times and embrace using broad match in some of their campaigns. So this has always been a big point of contention in the Google Ads community, is that broad match used to just completely suck. Google was basically just pawning off broad match keywords on people who had no idea, no business running Google Ads campaigns. And this was even as recently as earlier this year. Broad match just was a significant waste of money in the majority of accounts. I'm not saying this is a hard, fast rule, but Google and all of the adjustments that they have made to their algorithm, and especially with how AI is affecting how people search, there is a lot more data that Google has in order to match your ads to the right person. And a lot of times you are getting a lot more search data from Google in order to match with your ad that previously you didn't have before. And so that was the reason that a lot of people and most Google Ads experts were so strict about mainly only using exact match and phrase matches, because we knew better about what our potential clients were searching than Google did. However, a lot of that has changed. Not to say that exact match and phrase match don't work. I use all 3 different match types in all of the campaigns that I run. But broad match actually does produce very good results now, and that's because with all of the adjustments Google has made to the algorithm and how they match searches to the ads that they show, it is able to be a lot more flexible about the types of people that it shows to, and is able to use the data that you feed it in order to find people that are interested in your product but may not be searching for the exact types of searches that you would typically associate with somebody who's interested in your product. However, big caveat here is that you have to be feeding Google extremely good data in order for it to actually optimize these campaigns appropriately, because if you just tell Google, hey, I just care about form submissions, and you tell it, hey, you can use broad match to give me form submissions, it will find the dumbest people on the planet who will just fill out your form, and you will be left paying for tons of spam form submissions, tons of bots coming to your account and just filling out the form or clicking on the call button. This is a common problem that I see in campaigns that are trying to adjust with the times and use Google's algorithm to their advantage, but they're not giving Google's algorithm the data it needs in order to actually get good results. And so it's very important that you feed Google data about leads that are actually valuable to your business and are interested in your services. So this often means using a CRM in order to feed data back to Google about when somebody not only fills out a form, but you reach back out to them and they respond and they say, yes, I am interested in your services. And then you mark them as an interested lead, and then that data gets sent to Google. So it doesn't consider that it's doing a good job until you tell it that it's done a good job, rather than it just being a self-fulfilling prophecy of it getting you a bunch of spam and then being like, oh, I'm doing a great job, let me get more spam because you told it that a form submission was a conversion. Luckily for e-com clients, it's a little bit easier because it's hard to fake somebody buying your product and giving you money. And so that feedback system is a little bit cleaner, but this is often a problem that I see for a lot of service-based businesses that are trying to generate leads. The next problem that I see with a lot of accounts that I look through is only running search campaigns. And so this used to be the tried and true strategy that worked for honestly forever, up until Google started releasing these different types of campaign types, specifically Performance Max a couple of years ago. And quite frankly, Performance Max sucked. It was terrible. It was a great way for Google to convince people, once again, who had no idea what they were doing, to spend money very quickly with Google, and Google didn't have to give them any decent results, and it could just show them in the worst possible placements, show them across all the random ad placement types that Google just had in storage and just needed ads to be shown on these just random websites. But over the past year, really honestly, starting at the beginning of this year, Performance Max has been adjusted so much so that we are getting a lot more insight into what is actually going on in a Performance Max campaign. So for example, we can now add negative keywords to a Performance Max campaign. Another thing that we are seeing is that we can now see channel performance in a Performance Max campaign. And so this is something that is very important, is to know, okay, where exactly is Google spending my money, and where should it not be spending my money, so I can actually make adjustments to where Google places my ads. Whereas a year ago, we did not have this level of insight. It would just show it to whatever search terms it felt was necessary. If you put that you were wanting to show ads to people who are wanting to buy tires, and they search up rubber bands, Google would probably think, oh, there's rubber and tires, let's go ahead and show an ad to them. That's maybe an exaggeration, but you get the idea. Google was going in and just showing ads to as many people. It was even worse than broad match. However, Google has given a lot more input from the people managing ad accounts into the Performance Max campaigns. And so if you are actively managing an account and you have the ability to go in and add negative keywords, add placement exclusions so your ads don't show on bad websites that just aren't relevant to your services, Performance Max, once again, with a caveat of you feeding it very high quality data, similar to how broad match only works if you feed it high quality data. If you feed Performance Max high quality data now, with the adjustments that Google has made to this product, it performs very well and can get you in front of audiences that you would have not even thought were interested in your product, coming in and actively making purchases. And another thing is that it's able to show it across all these different types of placements that Google has to offer, and it has a bunch of data on all these types of people who may not be actively searching for your product, but they are actively interested in your product. And so it can get in front of those people a lot sooner and get in front of them before they even search for it. And so that is one fantastic use of Performance Max, and one thing that I've seen a lot of people not try recently because they've gotten burned by it in the past. They were like, oh, cool, 2 or 3 years ago when Performance Max was starting to make adjustments, become a little bit better, let's try it out for our account. And then Google just absolutely wasted their money, and people haven't revisited it since. Or people, when they're starting up new campaigns, they're like, I only want to show up for the specific searches that I'm interested in showing up for. And while that may be a good strategy for much smaller accounts who you can't afford to do any brand awareness and you need to be very highly targeted, any accounts that are spending enough money to be able to run some A/B tests would very much benefit from testing out a Performance Max campaign. The third misconception that I see in a lot of Google Ads accounts that I come in and optimize and improve and audit is the willingness to over-optimize in some of these Google Ads accounts. And I think a lot of this stems from maybe several years ago when it was necessary to come in and manually adjust bids for specific keywords, specific locations, increase and tweak the percentage of spend that was going towards these very specific points in a Google Ads campaign, because Google's algorithm just wasn't super fantastic and it needed a lot more input from the manager in order to generate the results that you needed to run a profitable campaign. And I think that has kind of carried over, and people believe, oh, in order for me to be successfully managing this account, I need to be making adjustments every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, based on small amounts of data that I'm seeing in this account. And that is something that I find that can severely hamper your account, especially if you were doing it based on small percentage differences in the performance of your account on certain A/B tests. So for example, if we're looking at the days of the week, and we see that on Sunday our cost per conversion is $42. Our average cost per conversion across all campaigns and days is $47. And then we have Monday through Friday, our average cost per conversion on each of those days is sitting around that $47 mark. And then on Saturday, our cost per conversion is, say, $52. You might think to yourself, oh, this day, Saturday, is underperforming significantly compared to all the other days that are consistently at this $47 mark or below. However, if you look into the data just a little bit more, you can kind of see that we only really have a 10% gap in the cost per conversion on any one of these given days. And so some people may make the decision to come in and pause Saturday altogether because they want to shift more budget towards Sunday through Friday, because the cost per conversion is just slightly lower than it is on Saturday. And oftentimes what happens is, okay, now we have to spend what's the quick math there? 13-14% more spend across all of these days, and our cost per conversion actually starts to increase on each of those days because we're forcing more spend into less time. And even though the cost per conversion on Saturday was a little bit higher, it was allowing us to get an overall higher number of conversions because people were still converting on Saturday that wouldn't be converting on any of the other 6 days of the week. And so even though we had to spend a little bit more money to convert them, it allowed us to spend our entire budget efficiently. And so obviously if we start to get to the point where a certain metric is, say, 20% higher cost per conversion, and I typically focus on cost per conversion because we don't really care about the cost per click, because if the cost per click is significantly higher but our cost per conversion still stays at the average, we're still profitable. So kind of focusing on cost per conversion, as long as it's within a decent range of, I typically say if it's under around 15% discrepancy from what the average is for whatever you're comparing. So maybe you're comparing different types of keywords and their performance. Oftentimes some people will see, oh, our cost per conversion on the keyword that is spending the most is, say, 10% higher than the average for the rest of our keywords in this ad group or campaign. But when you go in and you decide to pause that keyword, you now have to spend, say, that keyword spending 50% of your budget to get a little bit more expensive cost per conversion. It was still allowing you to get a certain volume of conversions that you wouldn't otherwise get with the other keywords or the other locations in that given campaign. And so by essentially optimizing based on a minimal discrepancy in the data, you're actually decreasing your results because you're forcing Google to spend budget where it would rather not, and forcing Google into a position where the spend has less places to go, and therefore your cost per conversion goes up because it's spending the same amount of money towards less people. And so this may be a little bit of a more abstract idea since I'm not able to show it directly in the data on this video, but that is something that I see a lot of people make just kind of as a broad generalization, is spending too much time in the account and optimizing too often, not giving things enough time to adjust. Another example of this would be when someone only gives a test 2 or 3 days, and if it's not performing within 2 or 3 days, they go ahead and shut it off. And a lot of times that is the biggest killer of what could possibly be the best performing change in your account. And oftentimes it does take, especially for bigger changes, it can take up to 2 weeks for Google to figure out exactly how it should adjust spend to incorporate this change you've made, whether that be a new keyword, maybe you've done a bid strategy change. This is one of the biggest ones that a lot of people will panic after a week and change the bid strategy back because their performance dropped a lot, but Google can take 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks to start to be able to use a new bid strategy effectively. So making sure that you are only optimizing one on very obvious data points. I always start with the obvious optimizations first. If something is spending 30% more to get a conversion, that obviously needs to go. And if I can prove that it's been doing that for over a month, I like to give as much time as possible towards A/B tests as I can without affecting the overall performance of the account. Obviously, if we're spending a significant budget towards an A/B test that isn't performing well, we may need to make a decision a little bit sooner. But that's why it's important to make sure you don't spend too much money doing A/B tests and allow the majority of your budget to go towards what's working, while still allowing for a certain percentage of your budget to go towards some testing, because there are always improvements to be made. And if you aren't testing, eventually Google's algorithm will catch up with you and People who are testing will find ways to outperform you, and your performance will slowly dip over time. So this may have been a little bit more than 3 tips. That may have been 3A and 3B, but that's kind of what I've seen recently over the past few months of auditing, reviewing, and managing accounts. I hope this video helps. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them, and I hope to see you in the next video.